You're 7 years old, sitting on your bedroom floor, listening to footsteps outside the door. Not because you're curious, because you're trying to guess what kind of night this is going to be. Is he drunk? Is she angry? Is the silence actually safe? Or is it that weird silence that comes right before shouting? You don't have words for it yet. You don't call it trauma. You don't call it hypervigilance. You just know the sound of trouble. That is what a bad childhood can sound like. And for some people, it never fully goes quiet. Because some people stay kind after a bad childhood, not because they were protected from darkness, but because they know exactly what darkness does when nobody stops it. So the question is not just what happened to them. The question is why some people grow up around cruelty and still refuse to become cruel. A child in a chaotic home gets trained in threat detection, but not in some clean textbook way. You just learn things. Which footsteps mean danger? Which door slam means stay quiet? Which version of your parent is walking into the room? Which joke is actually a warning? Which face means the night is already ruined? The amygdala, the part of the brain involved in scanning for danger, learns early that peace can disappear fast. So the nervous system stays awake, watching, listening, waiting. Psychologists call this hypervigilance. But in real life, it feels like walking into a room and knowing who is upset before anyone speaks. It feels like hearing one change in tone, and suddenly your whole body is 7 years old again. And then you become whatever keeps you safest. Quiet, funny, helpful, invisible. That is not personality, that is adaptation. And sometimes it becomes parentification too, which is a clean word for something very messy. The child starts managing the emotional weather of the house. You notice, you calm things down, you become useful, you stop needing too much. You grow up early because the adults around you are too unstable to carry the room themselves. So no, kindness after a bad childhood is not always softness. Sometimes it starts as survival. You learn pain from the inside. You learn what yelling does to a body. You learn how small someone can feel when a bigger person uses fear instead of love. And later, when you have your own anger, your own power, your own chance to hurt someone back, something in you has to choose. Repeat it or interrupt it. This is where the same wound can create two very different adults. Some people carry their childhood pain forward and make other people pay for it. Not always loudly, sometimes through coldness, control, silent punishment, making someone feel stupid, making someone feel small, making the weaker person in the room carry the helplessness they once felt. Pain does not automatically make people cruel, but unprocessed pain often looks for somewhere to go. And no, the people who stay kind are not secretly peaceful all the time. A lot of them are angry, very angry. They just know what happens when anger gets handed to the wrong person. They know the old reflex: protect yourself, hit first, shut down. Make them feel it too. Don't be the one who looks weak, but something interrupts it. Sometimes that interruption came from one safe person, a teacher, a grandparent, a friend's parent, someone who showed you that authority did not have to be terrifying, that care did not have to come with fear attached. In attachment theory, one reliable person can become a reference point, not a cure, not some magical rescue, just proof. Proof that people can be different from what you grew up around. Sometimes it came from a book, a character, a sentence you found at the right time, or a promise you made alone in a dark room after hearing adults lose control again. I will never make someone feel like this. That promise matters. Post-traumatic growth, studied by Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, does not mean trauma makes you better. That is too easy, too pretty. trauma does not polish people into saints. Most of the time, it damages first. Growth happens when a person starts building meaning around what happened instead of letting the wound become the whole identity. And for some people, that meaning becomes very simple. The damage ends with me. That is why their kindness can look calm from the outside, but feel exhausting on the inside. They are not calm because they never want to scream. They are calm because they know what screaming can do. They are not gentle because nothing inside them is sharp. They are gentle because they have spent their life making sure the sharp parts do not become someone else's childhood. That is the part people miss. The kindest person in the room is not always the person with the least anger. Sometimes it is the person supervising the most anger, every day, with no applause. Their kindness is not innocence. Innocence does not know what it is refusing. Their kindness is controlled pain, regulated anger, the moment where they could become cruel, and they don't. And this is why they notice things other people miss. The shift in someone's face, the joke that was not really a joke, the person at the table who went quiet, the child in the room who suddenly stopped asking for anything. They recognize pain quickly because they had to learn its language early. But instead of using that knowledge to control people, they use it to protect them. They do the thing nobody consistently did for them. They make the room safer, not perfectly. They still withdraw. They still overthink. They still apologize for tension they did not create. They can still disappear inside themselves and call it being fine. A bad childhood does not create a flawless adult, but in some people, it creates a specific kind of moral memory. A memory that says, I know what it costs when someone uses their pain as permission, so I won't. That is why still kind is not a small thing. It is not just being nice. It is not being harmless. Sometimes staying kind after a bad childhood means standing in front of the version of yourself that could have become cruel and saying no again and again. Because the old house may be gone, but the training is still there. The body still remembers. The ears still listen for footsteps. The nervous system still asks if safety is real. And yet, this person chooses not to become the storm they grew up surviving. That is not weakness. That is not innocence. That is restraint. Some people are not proof that pain makes you better. They are proof that pain gives you a choice, and every day, without applause, they choose not to pass it on. They are not kind because nothing broke them. They are kind because something did. And they decided the damage would end with them,